Characterization. This is a beast of a topic. Whatever I cover here can never be fully explored no matter how long this video is. It'll only be like a single twinkle in a vast ocean of stars. But still, this is such an amazing topic that I'm willing to do it anyway. Without further ado, let's do some stargazing. I suppose that I should start with what I believe the topic is all about. I'll then go into what the dynamic duo have covered with my own inputs. These topics will cover the ideas of depth, development, aesthetics, and chemistry. While I have no problem with these divisions of characterization, and I will even go on to make my own subsections of the topic, I'd like to remind everyone that focusing too much on the divisions and categories between subsections and subtopics actually takes away from your understanding of the general concept. Characters all serve narrative purpose, much like a finely crafted dish of food. It's not just a mishmash of whatever it is in the fridge that was left over from yesterday. Each aspect of food, every taste complements each other, and is summed up into a coherent whole. Even the look of fine cuisine contributes to the experience of eating a delectable meal. I believe that characters are all about layering. Much like how a beautiful image is put together, the depth that comes from the overlays of many different aspects of a personality is what makes a character engaging. Some people may call it depth, but I'll hold that rebuttal for a while. What do I mean by layering? Well, if you take a concept as a base or a background, you have the fundamentals of your character. I'll be creating an arbitrary character as I go through this video so that everyone will be able to view the character's progress, if not on a visual level, but a literary one. So onward with the example. Let's say we want to create a new pony as an addition to the main six. Now the basis for each of the main six could be argued to be the elements that they represent in the relationship: honesty, laughter, kindness, loyalty, and generosity. Twilight is a little different, and I explore why that is in my dynamics video, which will be annotated here somewhere post-production. I'll just take an arbitrary concept: amnesty. Now, amnesty, or the act of forgiveness, requires a certain amount of understanding and patience. Those other concepts we would just layer on top of the core concept. However, it's important to note that too many layers will just create noise as a mishmash of concepts and ideas, and be unclear as far as the message goes. Developing character traits. Traits are different from physical aspects of a character, and are also different from the emotions that a character might hold. Whereas the difference between character traits and physical traits is obvious, emotions can be a little deceiving. Fluttershy represents a trait of kindness, but that does not define her as a character, but rather serves as a motivational platform for her to jump off from. What I mean to say is that while Fluttershy exemplifies kindness, and that is the aspect of friendship she portrays, she does not embody kindness, but merely brings kindness to the group dynamic. This means that she can be cruel at times, and this would still be in character for her. In fact, this juxtaposition between character traits and their emotions add layers to what would progress to be a more intriguing character. If it hasn't been made clear by the example, emotion is different than a trait in that emotion is more surface level, brief, and contextually reliant. Typically, the more traits that a character has, the more interesting that character becomes. But in good storytelling, this is not often the case. Why? Would it not be better that all characters are thematically engaging and interesting? No, because it takes the viewer's attention away from the plot of the story, and more important lessons or characters and the message that the writers are trying to relay. This causes an imbalance within the characters within a set work, and this is the play where foils come into play. Foils to characters are other characters whose purpose on the show is to display contrast between the characters on the show and highlight them. I think about it this way, that there are two types of foils: positive foil and negative foil. The easiest foil to explain would be negative foils. Negative foils serve as a large contrast to the more important characters. They are, in short, opposites, and because of this fact, the writers that want to make certain aspects of their protagonist or whoever they're trying to describe more pronounced. They're like literary hair highlights. Discord and Celestia foil each other, as neither existence would be as powerful without the other. Positive foils can be a little muddled. Positive foils are extremely similar to the key character, but they have one or two significant differences. A very good example of this is Rainbow Dash and Lightning Dust. The two are competitive, confident, and a little egotistical, but the differences in their character are very pronounced when they are found. In our Amnesty example, I might set this character up to be a positive foil to Fluttershy, and a negative foil to Rainbow Dash, or even in Rarity. These aspects, again, add layering to a character. Our forgiving character might be very understanding, like Fluttershy, but be very extroverted instead. They may be unsure of herself, unlike Rainbow Dash, or Rarity to a lesser extent. Dynamic and static characters. Given the lead-up, static characters segue nicely. Static characters can be described with 2 or 3 character traits. Shallow, yes, but only by comparison to dynamic characters. Dynamic characters are not only multi-trait personalities, but they must be shown to change throughout the story, and their interactions must reflect this change. Static characters are foils as well, but they do not foil traits or emotions, but rather they serve to foil the changes in another character. I go into detail about this with my views on Fluttershy, again in my dynamics video. Because dynamic characters must be shown to change, they are very often the main characters, but in an ensemble cast, many more than just the protagonist may have this quality about them, and this is what makes for an interesting group dynamic. However, if everyone changed, there would be no root, or anchor to which to compare the change to, and so the static and dynamic must exist in harmony with one another. I think that's the best way to look at cute Fluttershy as a literary character. She's the very essential anchor that ties the dynamic group together. She is also aided by the very static character, Pinkie Pie, as opposed to Twilight or Rainbow Dash, whom are shown to have very active changes throughout the course of the show. Stock and unique characters. Stock characters are a very, very useful literary tool in order to make a character very dense very quickly. By use of a stock character, and by this I mean characters following archetypes like the Fool, or the Knight, or the King, we are able to put whatever preconceived notions we as consumers of media have into those characters. They do not need much development, and their motivations are unquestioned by the mass audience because of the fact that we have seen these characters so many times before, and we don't really need to see their motivations again. Unique characters are characters obviously unique to the story, and as storytelling goes on, it becomes more and more difficult to create unique characters, and I believe those creative writers out there will sympathize with me on this point. As more and more creative work gets out there, it becomes harder to have an original idea, and classifications will inevitably rise. Oh, this character is part fool, and part king, and part damsel. This makes the advent of a unique character very rare, and fairly high risk. There is a high return in that if the characters fit well and woven into the story masterfully, it has a very good chance of being an unparalleled point interest in the story, and consumers will undoubtedly want to know more about it. But if this unique character is not the protagonist or the main focus, then everything else will be overshadowed by it. A star can sometimes burn too bright. Striking the right balance of characters is very important for sustaining a good literary mechanic. This is only the surface of what the very creative Ms. Faust has done here. She has done something new with the ensemble cast that I have either forgotten or have never seen before in a show at all, let alone a children's cartoon. What she has done is say that the base layers of each character are not what the characters embody, and this is a very important distinction to make. In order to more adequately make this point clear, I'll posit this example. If I'm the funny guy in my own personal group of friends, I would bring laughter to the group. I might say that I embody laughter, but in a different group, I may not. I could be the charismatic, fearless leader, or the shy waif. It's only by comparison that these goals are made clear. This is the type of character base that I am personally used to. Ms. Faust did something extraordinary. Her characters do not embody their element. They bring it about in others. Pinkie Pie brings laughter out in others not because she is funny, and she is most certainly funny, but she brings laughter out in others because of her presence. Her presence says to the others that it's okay to laugh. It's okay to let yourself loose and have a good time. That no matter what, laughter is something that can be brought out about in anyone, and it's alright to bring it forth in almost any situation. This sort of feeling or emotion is called inspiration. Ms. Faust created characters that inspire their respective traits in others. And this is the reason why we connect with the characters on such a deep level, far removed from any other show I've seen in recent years. To have characters that inspire such rudimentary and primal emotion, not only the characters on the show, but to the viewership as a whole, that is an achievement worth noting, and one of the biggest reasons, in this pony's view, that this show has been so unexpectedly successful. Good characters exemplify a trait or element contextually in their work. Great characters inspire those traits to come out in others. But legendary characters will be able to inspire even the reader, or viewer in this case, to bring out those traits in themselves. And because of the fact that these traits are so positive, we are left with nothing but good feeling, and that is something to treasure. What I'm trying to say here is that good characters are more than just the sum of their parts, more than their depth, more than whatever traits or quirks they have. Good characters are all about the message that they give. While layering is important when not overdone, it pales in comparison to the message they send to the reader and what they inspire in us. Going forth with this message concept, I'll be delving into conveyance. How does a character convey message? Well, the most common mantra, so to speak, would be diction, action, looks, and interactions with other characters. These are the medians or conduits for which we get the experience of a multifaceted personality. When looking at a literary character, it's important to look at their diction. It says a lot about their character. Diction is their word choice, whether they use colloquialisms or formal language. It drives the viewer in thinking whether or not the character is intelligent, educated, or not. It becomes transparent how people think when looking at their speech patterns and verbal movements. There's also a type of projection here, to borrow a term from Jungian psychology, wherein the viewer will identify with the character and fill whatever holes the character has with the nearest possible identity known to the viewer fitting that character. A simple way to explain would be to say that if there's a detective character and he has some trait that's not fully explored in the text, I might associate that character with Sherlock Holmes and use his backstory, which is known to me, to unconsciously fill those holes. Actions and looks, these two are tied together as they are parts of the visual presentation. Nonverbal communication and their aesthetics. Nonverbal communication tells us what nature a character is carrying, whether it be aggressive or passive in that instance. It becomes transparent when looking at their subtle nonverbal movements to see what kind of mental state the characters are in. And in visual media, this idea is so thoroughly ingrained in our subconscious that it relays information on that level. It usually doesn't have to be said. Looks are, in my opinion, the least important part of a good character. Of course, there's a threshold of how visually appealing a character is, but after that threshold, it really matters not and falls upon the character's personality to how well an audience identifies and likes a character. Meeting or not meeting that threshold tells us a lot about how much the author would like us to like that character, though. Interactions between characters. This is where the bulk of what I said about inspiration comes in, and is, in my opinion, the most important. It is in interactions with characters that we get to see how characters inspire, and how deeply layered their personality really is, and we see how their unique traits get to bounce off the other characters. If all the rest of characterization are seeds, this junction is where we get to see if those seeds blossom or not. I said that I would further delve into what Digibrony and later Brony Curious have said about depth, development, aesthetics, and chemistry, but I think I accidentally jumped in that pond anyway. Many of the topics discussed there I've spoken about, and if any viewer has a deeper understanding for that, then my goal has been accomplished. I'd like to reiterate that characterization should not be divided into these subsections and scientifically broken down like this. At least on some level, we see characters as people, and that's why we identify and love them so much. This ties into why people find ponies attractive on more than just the level of a children's show, whether this be sexually or morally, because we see them as people. Otherwise, fiction would just be garbage that no one pays attention to. We get invested. And if this attraction has led to some to think about ponies sexually, then I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. They are very much in love with the idea of that character, and are invested in that attraction differently than others. People who are heavily morally invested end up people like me, people who think about brightly colored equines far too much. Wrapping things up, I'd like to know that if anyone has a topic they'd like me to cover, or a question they have for me, to leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to respond to them, at least in some way. Thanks for watching.